Hello, once again, Kenny Jacobs from Bloomington, Illinois. I'm going to do another video this evening talking about current events as it relates to Bible prophecy. And again, you will never hear me set any dates of any kind when it comes to the end times. I believe fully that we can understand the times and the seasons, and that Jesus gave us, and Paul and the apostles and the prophets in the Old Testament gave us very specific signs to look for to know that we are living in the last days. I fully 100% believe that. So much of the Bible is prophetic, and I believe it's there for a reason, so that we can know and so that we can be prepared. And it's a way to comfort us, to let us know that God's Word is true and that God is in control. And no matter what happens to us on this earth, if we are saved, if Jesus Christ is our Savior, we are going to win in the end, no matter what happens. I firmly believe we can know that we're in the last days. I don't see how there's any chance that we are not the last generation and the one that will be on the earth when Jesus Christ returns. There is just so much going on. So I want to reiterate that it is time to be bold and continue to sound the alarm and warn people about the signs of the times and what's really going on, and to continue to spread the gospel and pray for our unsaved loved ones like never before. Time is very, very short. And unfortunately, because of that, I keep talking about how America will have to fall. There can no longer be an American superpower if there's going to be a one-world government. I fully believe that Obama and his administration are here for such a time as this, that they were put here for a reason. And all the people behind the New World Order are using him to, as Obama has said in the past, to fundamentally change America and to help usher in the eventual New World Order. So along those lines, I'm going to go through some stories from the news today that back that up. First of all, this is actually just an email ad from Newsmax magazine. And it says, new law expands government surveillance of U.S. citizens starting in July. It says, Obama has done it again. Did you hear? This July, Washington will enforce a new law granting agencies greater power to restrict your constitutionally protected freedoms and right to privacy. Well, we've heard that a lot lately, haven't we? In short, if you hold any of your wealth in U.S. dollars, this law gives private and government agencies the right to increase surveillance of your activities, whether you live in the U.S. or overseas. This law will grant these agencies the power to monitor your investments, track your finances, demand any bank, investment fund, or financial institution anywhere in the world hand your private records over to the IRS without even informing you. Anyone found in breach of this new law may have almost 1/3 of their wealth seized by the IRS. It's too late to stop this law going into effect. Our broke government is growing increasingly desperate for income. Washington will resort to increasingly drastic measures to extract it from us. Surveillance on your activities will increase. There's only one place I know of you can legally grow your wealth without having to report to the IRS, and it will keep it safe from these government spies, and it goes on to talk about it. But again, here we go. More stuff about increased government surveillance and treading on our constitutional rights and our right to privacy. So interestingly enough, I'm going to read from an article from yesterday from The Hill, and the title of this article is FBI Chief Says, Be Suspicious of Government Power. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But that's pretty amazing when you hear the FBI chief say be suspicious of government power. It says the head of the FBI says he understands why people worry about the scope of government's powers, and in fact he agrees with them. I believe people should be suspicious of government power. I am, the director of the FBI said. I think this country was founded by people who were worried about government power, so they divided it among the three branches. In the months since Edward Snowden leaked documents detailing the country's intelligence programs, Comey said that it's hard for me sometimes to find the space and time to talk about what I do and why I do it. Though the controversial surveillance raised privacy concerns and made people fret that the government was snooping on their behavior, Comey said that the FBI programs are run responsibly. He added that those operations had also helped to track down kidnappers and save children. And it goes on to talk a little bit more about the National Security Agency and the FBI. And no doubt some of those programs are run responsibly, and no doubt we need some of those programs. But also, no doubt, there are a lot of government agencies completely overstepping their bounds right now and spying on us. And like I said in a video the other day, even Michelle Obama is now encouraging people to report and spy on their relatives and friends and report them for making racial comments. Which brings me to the next story. Now, this is out of Prophecy News Watch newsletter. I'm going to read a couple articles out of this. First one says, this goes along right with what Michelle Obama said the other day. The title of this article is Feds Want to Scour the Net and Media for Hate Speech. It also goes right along with the FBI guy saying, be suspicious of government powers. If two Democratic lawmakers have their way, Barack Obama's Justice Department will submit a report for action against any internet sites, broadcast, cable television, or radio shows determined to be advocating or encouraging violent acts. Unfortunately, the government now deems anybody who is a dissenter, anybody who disagrees with them, or is willing to challenge them, or who wants to stand up for our constitutional rights, a danger, and that you are a possible terrorist. So the problem with this here is, how and who do they determine is a possible threat? It says the Hate Crime Reporting Act of 2014 would create an updated comprehensive report examining the role of the internet and other telecommunications in encouraging hate crimes based on gender, race, religion, ethnicity, or sexual orientation, and create recommendations to address such crimes. Let's see. I just want to read the final paragraph here. It says, one can only imagine how this bill could be manipulated to shut down any conservative or Christian website or radio talk show that stands for biblical truth. I will post this into the description box, a link for this article, so you can read it yourself. And then that brings me down to one other article in the Prophecy News Watch newsletter. This one is called, it says, Scientists, robots could be programmed to kill you for the greater good. As the United Nations debates legislation that could outlaw killer robots, scientists predicted artificially intelligent systems could one day decide to kill humans for the greater good. Here's a scenario this article talks about. A front tire blows and your SUV swerves, but rather than veering left into the opposing lane of traffic, the robotic vehicle steers right, brakes engage, and the system tries to correct itself. But there's too much momentum. Like a cornball stunt in a bad action movie, you're over the cliff in free fall. Your robot, the one you paid good money for, has chosen to kill you. Better that, its collision response algorithms decided than a high-speed head-on collision with a smaller, non-robotic compact. There were two people in that car to year one. The math couldn't be simpler. Oh boy. It says, aside from Google cars and other autonomous forms of transportation, the question of giving robot soldiers a license to kill has raged for years and is currently the subject of a highly anticipated debate in New York, being overseen by the UN's Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons. Wow. Again, I'll just leave it at that. I don't think we want our government creating robots that can determine whether we should die or not. Enough said on that. I'll put this in the description box as well. I want to cut over to two more articles out of the Jerusalem Post, and this is related to the peace agreement again, the Daniel 9:27 peace agreement. The one that, again, just will not go away. Why? Because, as I said earlier, I maintain that we are the last generation. And not only are we the last generation, but I really firmly believe we are living in the last of the last days. I could be wrong, but I'm going to continue to live like I'm not, make sure that I'm ready, and try to share the gospel with everybody I can, and continue to warn people that the time could be short. Out of the Jerusalem Post says, Netanyahu open to exploring alternatives if direct talks prove impossible. Israel remains committed to talks with the Palestinians, but it refuses to negotiate with Fatah as long as it honors its unity deal with Hamas. But Netanyahu hopes it won't come to that, the official added. Israel remains committed to face-to-face talks with the Palestinians as the best forward path to two states for two peoples, the official stressed, but it refuses to negotiate with Fatah as long as it honors its deal with Hamas. Now the talks have been suspended, several government ministers have begun proposing alternatives. The broad-based options that members of the government have put forward fall into three basic categories: an economic plan, withdrawal from isolated settlements, or annexation of territory in the West Bank. It says, no one knows if the Hamas deal is going to stick, the official said. If that marriage is not consummated, we are ready to return to direct talks with the Palestinians. Again, this will not go away. It says, U.S. State Department spokeswoman Jen Psaki told reporters in Washington on Wednesday that the United States wants the Israelis and Palestinians to come up with new ideas to arrive at a two-state solution to the conflict. But it caught my eye when it said that several government ministers have been proposing alternatives. I can assure you, coming soon, there will be somebody who will propose some alternatives. Not only will he propose the alternatives, Daniel 9:27 makes it clear that he will sign the covenant. He will confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and the final 7-year period of time, known as the time of Jacob's trouble or Daniel's 70th week, will commence. The final paragraph of this article says, one promising idea is to encourage multinational corporations to invest in Palestinian areas by offering economic incentives. Goes on to talk about making this Israel and into a startup, not just a startup nation, but a startup region. They are trying to get this to all come together. Which brings me to one final article, and this is also in the Jerusalem Post. And this is U.S. says we're seeking new ideas from the Israelis and the Palestinians. John Kerry is still engaged with both parties despite numerous commitments to conflict resolution elsewhere. It says that John Kerry is basically putting his time into other areas of the world right now, but is hoping that Abbas and Netanyahu will come up with some ideas that they're willing to compromise on so the talks can be resumed. It says, consistent with the approach of President Barack Obama and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, the focus of these discussions and the effort overall is on getting the two sides to come up with new ideas and avoid unhelpful steps. Hence, there was a statement that came out. When the direct talks began, the U.S. had hoped to arrive at a final status agreement at the end of 9 months. It then downgraded its expectations to a framework agreement of principles that would allow for further talks, and in the end, even that wasn't feasible. It remains in the hands of the parties to take and make the necessary choices if they want to resume discussions. So again, we're going to just keep hearing about this. We're going to keep hearing more and more about these peace talks, and eventually, and I really do believe it will be sooner than most people even come close to imagining, that the final world dictator of the one world government, the future Antichrist, will begin to rule. Well, really, really exciting times, but all these prophecies that we see being fulfilled right now, all this discussion of end-time events, does not mean good things if you are not saved. And I know that the world doesn't want to hear this message, but I'm going to continue to proclaim it. John chapter 14, verse 6, Jesus himself said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to the Father but by me. Acts chapter 4, verse 12. This is the Apostle Peter talking, and he says, neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. It is time to be bold and proclaim that message like we never have before. Time is short, and there's too many unsaved people out there with their heads stuck in the sand, not paying any attention to what's going on. And all the signs are here that Jesus said would be here, signaling his return. Keep looking up. God bless everyone.